Hello everybody, welcome back to Hard Enduro Media. It's part 2 of the lightweight adventure bike project, and in this episode we're looking at wheel building. Now what can I tell you about wheels? Well, I'm not an expert by any means, but over the last 12 months working at Eurotek I've picked up a few tips, and I think I've built now 4 wheels so far. I built this rear one fairly recently and we've got one to do now. Now these wheels are going to be going on the lightweight adventure bike. Now before we start looking at building this front wheel up, let's just talk about this back wheel that we've got here. Now this hub originally came with a DID rim on it and standard steel spokes. It was blue anodised, it looked a bit of a dog's dinner, so I thought I'd give it a full refresh and rebuild it. So what we've done is we've stripped all the spokes out, we've got rid of the rim, and we've polished the hub a little bit, cleaned it up, and then we've rebuilt it with stainless steel SM Pro spokes. Now the SM Pro spokes, like a lot of stainless steel spokes, are 1mm thicker than standard KTM spokes. And then the rim, there's a lot out there when it comes to buying rims. It's all down to how much of a budget you've got. I looked at what was out there. You can pay anything from 50 quid up to £200, probably more for a rim if you want to. It's all down to budget, all down to what type of riding you're doing. Now for me, I'm just going to be trail riding with this bike. The rim I've got, like I say, it's an unbranded one. It was 55 quid. I got it from a UK supplier. And the reason why I went for this rim is because the seller got quite a lot of good feedback on his products that we're selling. And they sold quite a lot of these rims around the UK. So it'll be more than adequate for what I want in terms of my sort of riding capabilities and, you know, what I'm aiming this bike to be doing. It's going to be trail ridden pretty much. I'm not doing hard enduro on it. I'm not doing Erzberg, Lagares, that sort of stuff. It's going to be trail ridden and nothing else. And with the SM Pro spokes, this wheel will be very strong. I'm quite sure of that. Every time I've built a wheel, I've built 4 wheels now, and I learn something new every time. It's like everything, the more you do it, the more you learn, the more you get better at it. So if you think about this wheel, we've got a hub, a rim, and then we've got the spokes. The spokes, think about the spokes as being in 4 layers. We've got 36 holes all the way around. We've got 36 spokes. We've got 18 spokes laced in from each side of the hub. Okay, and on each side of the hub we've got upper holes and lower holes. Uppers being one layer, lowers being the second layer, and on the opposite side we've got the same again, upper and lower, so 2 layers on each side. Quite simple. So all we're going to do when we start building it is put in 1 layer of spokes in at a time. So we'll put 1 layer on one side and then we'll go and put a second layer in, and once we've got 2 layers in on one side, and then turn it over and do the other spokes. So we'll do that now. I'll just move this one. So what we've got here is the rim, the hub and the spokes, 36 spokes and 36 nipples. Before we start looking at the wheel build, let's very quickly talk about the rim. Now this is an XL rim, Takasago rim, genuine KTM fitment, and it came with a 19-inch rear that I've got. Basically they're off a motocross bike. I got 2 wheels fairly cheap off a friend, 2 wheels for £100. I think these wheels were off something like a 2012 SXF motocross bike going back, but it's a fairly straight rim. It was quite pitted, so what I've done is I've just cleaned it up with a wire wheel, and then I finished it off with some wet and dry and some T-cut. It's brought it up to a fairly good shine, so it's a matching finish there, no, near enough. So just getting a quick close-up of the hub. As you can see in there we've got upper holes and lower holes. I'm going to put the rim on 2 blocks of wood just to elevate it, like so. All we're going to do is move the rim round to the point where the valve hole here is at the 6 o'clock to me. Okay, so the last thing I want to be doing is trying to put a spoke in there and tightening it up. So that's in that position. We've got the hub in the centre. It doesn't matter if it's that way or that way, it makes no difference. What we're going to do is starting with the upper holes in the hub. Let's put the first spoke in. We've got the hub somewhere sort of centralised to the rim, and all we're going to do is move it around like that and just see where it lines up. Now you can see the holes on the rim, they are at angles, and that hole there is angled sort of perfectly in line with that spoke. So all we're going to do is put a nipple on there, like so, screw it up to the point where you can just see the top of the threads. Then we're going to get another spoke and we're going to do the next upper one. So we'll put that in there, and because you've got 9 spokes in the first layer, we're going to have 3 spoke holes gap between those 2 spokes. So this is the first layer of spokes that I'm putting in. So we're going to continue this theme, putting the upper spokes in. And that's the last spoke on the first row. You can see we've now got an equal pattern, the first row of spokes in the rim. So we're now going to go on to the second row of spokes, the bottom ones. Again, it doesn't matter if you're going clockwise or anti-clockwise. Again, all we're doing is putting one in, it's going underneath, working underneath now the spokes you put in, and we're going to be going to the centre hole of the 3 that are between these initial spokes. So we're going to a middle one. So there we are, we've got the first row of spokes in all the way around. We've got a nice uniform pattern, as you can see, and that's what you're looking for, a nice uniform pattern. Between each spoke you should have a spare spoke hole all the way around. So we'll now turn it over and we're going to repeat the process, starting with the upper spokes and then the lower spokes second. Now the importance of putting the upper spokes in first is that when you get to the final stages of the wheel sort of lacing, the lower spokes will slot in a lot easier than if you did it the opposite way around. If you did it on the lower spokes first, the upper spokes are quite stiff to get in. If you're starting to bend spokes when you're building the wheel up, you're doing something wrong. So again, it's always starting with the top layer of spokes. And then that just lines up nicely with that hole. Quite therapeutic, this. It goes without saying, when you're doing this, give yourselves plenty of time. Don't be doing it half an hour before the missus gets tea on and then she's shouting for you to come grate the cheese. You need a little bit of time. You've got to be patient, because particularly when you're in the sort of final stages, when you're actually truing the wheel up on the bike or in a truing stand, it can take up to an hour depending on your sort of skill with it. The first one you're doing, it might take you a while, and particularly if you're working with a rim what's not particularly straight, you're just refreshing an old wheel, which is in effect what we're doing here. So that's the top layer of spokes in. You can see a uniform pattern. So we'll now put the final layer of spokes in, which is the bottom layer. And you'll see now why it's easier, because you're not having to work on top of anything. It just fits in nicely. And it again automatically lines up to the hole it needs to be at, which is that one. And as you probably just spotted there, I just missed one of the lower ones on the first side that we did. Just turn it around. Quite easy to do. Nobody's perfect. So we've got all the spokes in now, and you can see there's quite a bit of slackness still in it. We've got all the spokes done up to the point where you can't see threads there. So all we're going to do now, because there's still quite a lot of slack in it, so I'm going to screw this one up to the point where it's just protruding above the screwdriver slots. I'll do that with every spoke now. So all these spokes are now tightened up to the point where you can see the tip of the spoke with the screwdriver slots, but there's still quite a few slack spokes in there, although we're now starting to see a little bit of a rigidity in the wheel. Now at this point we're going to talk about offset. What's offset? And now offset is in terms of how the rim will run with the hub. Now on KTM Husqvarna rims and hubs, all the spokes are the same length, so if you are tightening all the spokes up to the same degree, theoretically you should get the rim centralising itself with the hub, and that's what we've got here. So to check that, all we're going to do is lay the wheel on a bench like so, on a flat surface. Let's get a tape measure. So we'll check the offset on this side, that's 1.5 inches. Check it on the opposite side, and again we're at 1.5 inches, so it's pretty much bang on there. So we checked the offset on both sides, it's fairly centralises that. I'm quite happy. We're now going to move on to the truing stage and the torquing stage, getting the spoke nipples up to the correct torque. So to do that we're going to need either a truing stand, if you've got a truing stand. If you haven't got one of them, put the wheel in the bike and do it in the bike. It's simple. So we're now going to go into the studio, put the wheel in the front forks, and then we'll start looking at getting the wheel true and then get it to final torque. Let's go. So we're now in the studio, we've got the wheel in the bike, and we're going to start looking how true the rim's running. So what we've got here is a little bit of tape running across between the two forks, and we're going to use that as a guide to tell us how far the rim's running out of true on lateral movement, which is up and down, and sideways movement. Now just looking at the rim as it is at the moment, I've detected a flat spot, and that is where the weld is, and I've marked it with a little bit of tape here, and you can see we've got a flat spot on that area, and that's where the rim has been welded when it was first manufactured. Just going to continue rotating it around. We've got another flat spot here on this side. You may be able to see that, very slight. That might be down to an impact at some point, but again I'm not too concerned. And then it's coming up high is the rim. We've got another slight indentation here. This is the thing you're going to come across if you're using a used rim. Even with a brand new rim, you're still going to get some slight distortion where the welding is. And then we've got, again, back to that low point where the weld is. So just spinning it. It is bouncing up and down a little bit, but that's generally because of the indentations we've got. So I'm not too concerned at the moment. Let's look at the sideways movement. Now the rim's not looking too bad there, but the run out is generally where the deformities are in the rim, with the flat spot is where it's been welded and where it's had a couple of impacts. But overall the rim's running fairly true. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start adjusting the spokes, and we're going to get them up to the specific torque, and there's a process to doing that. You may have noticed the tape on the rim here. What I've done is numbered the spoke layers in the order that the spokes were fitted. Layer 1, Layer 2, Layer 3 and Layer 4. This is a fast spoke key made by an American company. It's preset to 5 Newton meters torque, so it acts like a torque wrench. Feel it clicking there. So when we start torquing the nipples up, we know we're going to get them to the right tightness, and that's where we need to be. If you're just using a spanner, you don't really know where you are. With this, when the spokes are up to torque, like on the back wheel here, it will click, so you know the spoke is at the right tightness. The last thing we need is over tight spokes. You can damage the threads on the nipples. You can also break the spokes when you're out riding, so they need to be the correct tightness. So starting with number 1, this is the first layer. We've got 9 spokes, count 3 spokes. The fourth one was turn over a quarter of a turn, again count 3 spokes. So we're doing that same layer every time. So having done the first layer of spokes that we put in, we're now going to go onto the opposite side and tighten the third row that we put in. So we're keeping the symmetry of the wheel equal. So we've done number 1 and number 3. We now go back onto the opposite side and we'll do the number 2s. We just come across one there or very loose. So all I'll do is done it up finger tight and then a quarter of a turn. Now we'll finish on the number 4s. Doesn't matter which way you turn the wheel, as long as you're getting the same row of spokes and you end up at the same finishing point. Again, just doing 9 spokes on each layer. So we've done that first process. All I'm going to do now is check the rim for trueness again and see if there's any the high points or low points. Now again, with these deformities in the rim, we do have some, but it is what it is. It's an enduro rim, it's not MotoGP as they say, but that is running, I think, as true as we're going to get it. So what we're going to do now is continue the same process, starting with the first layer, tighten the first layer of spokes a quarter of a turn, and then go on to the opposite side, do another layer, and so on. So we'll start with the number 1s. So we've now repeated the process of tightening the spokes 4 times now, so they're all tightened equally, and in between doing that we've also just checked for trueness every time they run out, and that run out is the same as what it was before I started that last process. It's as near as we're going to get it for this rim, I think. All we're going to do now is, because we've got about 70% of the spokes at torque, go around each spoke on each side and just bring each spoke to the correct torque, and we'll see where we are. So I'm going to start from number 1. Just check that one. Just that's at torque. And just go on to the next one on this side. That's at torque. Keep going. That's at torque. Some of these were not even turning. Some are like a 16th of a turn. So, like I said, in that final stage, having initially done the process of tightening each layer individually, up to 4 times, we're now at the final stage where you've got 70% of the spokes at torque. Just go around all the spokes on one side, make sure they're all brought up to torque, and then do the same on the opposite side, which I've just done then. But it's running something like, it's not the best rim in the world, but we're on a budget and that's what we've got at the moment. So that is basic wheel building. So this is where we are at the moment with the lightweight adventure bike project. We've got the wheels built now. I'm not an expert wheel builder by any means. I'm sure there's somebody out there who might say you should have done it a different way, but it is what it is. The system that I'm using seems to work for me. I dare say that over time, when I start doing more wheels, I will improve my technique, and you know that's to be expected. But in the next video, we're going to be looking at fitting the tyres and the Lucioli inner tubes, plus a few other goodies that I've got from Eurotek. So that's it from me at the moment. If you need any KTM parts, contact Eurotek. Please ask for your 15% discount. Everyone's entitled to that who's buying parts from Eurotek. That's on OEM, KTM bits, and there is some slight discount on other products as well. So please inquire. But from me at the moment, stay tuned. Hard Enduro Media with Eurotek KTM. See you soon.